Welcome home, welcome home, welcome back to War. We're all recovering. This podcast is about battles people don't always see. Some wars happen on battlefields, some happen inside homes, classrooms, and inside a child's mind where when they're told they're not smart enough. When the truth is, the system simply wasn't built for how they learn. Today, we're diving into a conversation that I think a lot of parents and families need to hear. Our guest today is Russell Van Brocklen, known as the Dyslexic Professor. Russell helps families transform daily reading struggles into real academic confidence by using structured literacy methods designed specifically for dyslexic learners. His mission is to help kids move from frustration to confidence and help parents understand why traditional approaches often fail children with dyslexia. Russell, welcome to War.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start from the beginning. How did you get started?
Well, this is the last thing I was supposed to do with my life. I was supposed to be a bureaucrat in the New York State government. So what happened? It was the late 90s. I was interested in how laws were created, not some class I wanted to know. So I signed up for the New York State Assembly internship program, which was ridiculous on the face of it. And people are like, well, why? You were a senior university student. This is the time when you would do that. Well, I showed up and I said, here's my neuropsychological evaluation. I have a first grade reading and writing level, and which means I couldn't do the traditional internship because back then it was the elected official, then the chief of staff, who's probably an intern a year or two before, and then the intern. I'm supposed to answer phones, write memos, write up policy things, file things, and I could do exactly none of it. So the director panicked, went up to the speaker's office, and the speaker said, you're not going to get rid of this kid because he's dyslexic. In fact, you're going to accommodate the living heck out of him and make this work. So they got a committee together, their senior people. They took me out of the legislative office building, which was a huge deal because a big part of the internship was being around your peers, which I was around them for almost no time. They moved me over to the Capitol into the Majority Leaders Program and Council's office, which ran the assembly day to day. And they had zero idea what to do with an undergrad. I walked in, I could instantly see why they did it. There were 3 administrative assistants that could help with my crappy writing and turn it into something I could turn in each week. But they had zero idea what to do with an undergrad. So they treated me like a graduate student, which is a real policy position. So I have the best internship out of anyone. I'm doing real work. So then for the academic portion, I go ahead and I do an hours long presentation instead of the standard paper, which is a standard accommodation for me back then. They wrap it all up together and say, recommendation, 15 college credits, A- grade. Send it back to their flagship university, the State University of New York Center at Buffalo's, and to their political science department. Little detail. The New York State government itself, at the highest levels, decided these accommodations, but the political science department didn't like them because they were absolutely massive. So they said, we're lowering your grade because we disagree with this assessment. What do you think they lowered it to?
A.
Nope, they flunked me. 15 credits of
F.
F.
F?
Yep, they
No
flunked me.
way.
Yep. At that point, remember where I came from. I spent nights and weekends working with the assembly, the Majority Leaders Program and Council's office, my choice. Because of that, because of the people that I knew, because of what they thought of me, I had all these opportunities available to me, which I've turned down because I was now going to solve dyslexia. Like so many other people who actually went through this hell, I'm like, I'm going to just fix the system. Well, I actually did. So I asked my professors where I should go to force myself to learn to read and write. And they said, well, in grad school. And they said, well, if you like politics, it's easy. Law school. Well, you read and write more than anyone. So I went and audited 2 law school classes. So I show up, I go in, and the second day of contracts, what they do is if they call on you using the Socratic method, which basically means if you don't know the answer, which nobody does the first week, they will then keep asking you questions that you don't know to publicly embarrass you until you eventually adapt.
That's what it is, huh? Okay.
Well, that didn't happen to me. I didn't respond as a student. I responded as the professor's equal.
Mm-hmm.
Let me be very clear on that. The professor was a law professor for longer than I was alive at that point, and I responded as his equal.
How old
We
were you
argued.
during this time?
I was 23.
Okay.
He was a professor for pushing 30 years.
Wow. Okay.
So when I say I responded as his equal, he went after me. I went after him. I couldn't beat him. He couldn't beat me. We both knew where we were going, moves ahead of time. At the end of it, he said, Russell, you couldn't be any more correct. I have to move on in the interest of time. My classmates who eventually passed the bar, who've been practicing for decades, said they still can't do that. So then I learned to read within a couple of months. And I learned to, within a month, I learned to write within a couple of years. Then I go back to the New York State Senate and I said, I want you to fund my dyslexia research program, which they don't do. But my representative is the majority of the state senate, and back then it was three men in the room: the speaker of the assembly, the majority leader, and the governor. They made all the decisions. So he sends me over to the education department, who have to take me seriously. So then what they did is they said, "Where is this out of?" And they said, "Buffalo." And they said, "Well, we want a New York State distinguished professor in psychology to evaluate this and say that there's something here, or you're done." I said, "Okay, no problem. There's got to be a bunch of them." That's their highest ranked professor. There are two. One just happens to be the one who gave me the evaluation that started this fiasco. So her name is Dr. Holichka, Irene Holichka. And I went back and she said, "Sure, I'll do it." 3 days of testing, 20 hours over 3 days of the smartest woman I ever met, beating me up to make sure that this is real. At the end, she wrote a report saying, "I worked with this kid, like 5 years before. Same thing. He's reading and writing at the first grade level, like a 6-year-old. When he turns his system on, his writing goes up to about the 70th percentile of entering grad students. And it turns back down. It's a light switch. He's going from a part of his brain that works to one that doesn't, from it doesn't work to one that does work." Here's the 5 pages explaining all this. So I bring it back to the New York State Education Department. Now they're literally like, "What the heck? This makes no sense, but we can't dispute it because this is literally our top psychologist in the state." So they said, "Okay, go and connect this to current research." So then I went up to Professor James Collins, who's the only person that's made any sense. He had a $1.5 million grant from the U.S. Education Department. And he wrote a book called Strategies for Struggling Writers. And I had to take his work from mild dyslexia to severe dyslexia, which was supposed to take years. I got his approval, A plus, excellent, in under 2 weeks. Noticing how I'm doing really well in grad school, that's a point that we'll come back to. So then I take that, I enroll in a university-wide competition, get 15,000, go to our first student. Her name is Michaela. I want to work with students like me. Michaela was a 17-year-old high school junior at the 8th grade level. All these kids all right at the middle school level. And after 5 months, she was writing in the 50th percentile of entering grad students. But we didn't transfer. I scored in the 70th. So the next student, his name was Adam. His teacher said he was a freaking genius, but he failed the New York State Regents with a 47 and a 52. Dr. Holichka was so angry at his writing, he should be banned from college. 5 months later, Dr. Holichka evaluates him. 50th percentile of entering grad students. It transferred. School district wanted it. I got funding for 2 years. We went into the Averill Park Central School District right outside of Albany, New York, the state capital of New York State. And it was super motivated, intelligent high school juniors and seniors. They're all writing at the middle school level. One class period for the school year, one class period a day. They increased to the 30th to 70th percentile of entering graduate students. They all went on to college. They all graduated GPAs of 2.5 to 3.6. Cost New York State taxpayers less than $900 a kid. Compared to the best dyslexic college out there, which was a transfer college, we were as successful for less than 1% of the cost. And that's how I got started.
Well, let's back up a little bit, Russell, so people could get the big picture. A lot of families hear the word dyslexia, but don't fully understand what it means beyond reading difficulties. From your experience working with the students and parents, what is dyslexia really? And what are the biggest misconceptions people have about it?
Well, what if I told you I could show you in one image? So let's go to the science. This is the top science book of anything to do with dyslexia. It's called Overcoming Dyslexia. This happens to be the second edition by Dr. Sally Shaywitz from Yale. That's dyslexia. Do you see how the back part of your brain has this massive neuroactivity?
Right.
Right here?
Right.
Now, the back part of my brain has like about almost nothing.
Zilch. Right.
Right. Now, do you see how the front part of my brain's about 2.5 times more active than yours?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's going on? Kindergarten through most of college is the back part of the brain. Okay. I'm way oversimplifying neuroscience that'll tick off my peers. But essentially, this is where stuff happens in kindergarten through high school and a lot of college. The front part of the brain is essentially grad school. That's why I dominated in law school. I just could see everything. I have 2.5 times the neuroactivity. When I had to do the thing for Dr. Collins, I was done in less than 2 weeks, not 2 years. It's an unfair advantage in grad school. So what we have to do for undergrads, like let's say the biggest issue we have for dyslexia. Let's talk about where parents come to me the most. If the kids are in elementary or middle school, typically, and they're essentially writing a bunch of randomly placed misspelled words. So do you ever know a elementary, middle school dyslexic kid who is writing randomly placed misspelled words at any point in your life, or not really?
No, not
Okay.
at all.
So I'm going to train you in the next 10 minutes how to fix this impossible problem.
Okay,
Okay.
let's
So
go.
let's assume the student I use in this case, her name is Sarah. Sarah is at the time, she's 10 years old. She's in fifth grade and she's writing randomly placed misspelled words. Nobody has a clue what to do. So what I'm going to tell you is how we fix this from Sarah is we have to take things from the back part of the brain where nothing's going on and move it to the front part of the brain where it's about 2.5 times overactive. So what we do with that is the first thing we have to do is find out what Sarah's speciality is, her area of extreme interest and ability. And for her, it's swimming. She's on the swim team. She gets in the pool every chance she can get. So what you're going to do to teach Sarah to do this is you're going to pull out a real laptop computer with an actual real functioning keyboard, not an iPad, not an iPhone, and certainly not handwriting, a real keyboard. And you're going to type out hero plus sign. What are we talking about? And then you're going to tell Sarah to copy it. And I can hear the parents screaming now, but she's not allowed to copy. Professor James Collins, Strategies for Struggling Writers, Default Writing Strategy of Copying. It's okay. So she copies that. Here's the key point until she has it spelled correctly. Then we're going to swap out hero for Sarah. So now we got Sarah plus sign. What are we talking about? Then we're going to go to a list of 10 things that Sarah really, really likes and 10 things she really, really dislikes. And we're going to go to the top of the list of what she likes, which is swimming. So we got Sarah plus sign. What are we talking about? We're going to swap out what are we talking about for swimming. And now we got Sarah plus sign swimming. See how we got there?
I am so lost right now.
Okay. So let me just go over it again. You're going to have Sarah type out hero plus sign. What are we talking about? And she's going to copy it. See how we got there?
I'm trying.
Then
I'm
we're going
trying to visualize it.
yes. So then we're going to swap out hero for Sarah. So now we got Sarah plus sign. What are we talking about? Okay, so
Hero
far?
plus sign. What are we talking about? Okay.
Yes. Then we're going to go up to the first thing on the list she really likes out of 10 likes and 10 dislikes, which is swimming. And we're going to swap that out for what are we talking about? And we got Sarah plus sign swimming.
Okay. Okay.
Why are we going through this? Because if you ask a dyslexic in their speciality, do they have ideas flying around their head at light speed but with little to no organization? They're going to say yes. So what we have to do is force the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. Okay. So in other words, there's just no organization. So we go hero plus sign. What are we talking about? Okay, I got that. Now we swap out hero for the kid's name, Sarah. Sarah plus sign. What are we talking about? Okay, what are we talking about? Well, I got to go to my list and find something. Swimming. We're going to swap that out. So we got Sarah plus sign swimming. So now they understand how we got there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to fool you with two of the simplest questions ever.
Gosh.
If you answer them exactly, this will work. If you don't, you're going to get extremely confused, and then you're going to have an epiphany on what dyslexia really is. Okay?
Okay, Russell. Okay, let's go.
You know, just so the audience knows why I'm doing this, I'm trying to force you into that epiphany, that light bulb. Now I get what dyslexia is, because I can tell you most of the practitioners don't really understand it. Okay? So this is how I do that. So remember, if you answer my questions exactly, this will work. If not, you will get very confused and then have the epiphany. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
So just remember, try to answer what I'm asking exactly, and these are very simple questions. So we got Sarah, plus sign, swimming. We need to swap out the plus sign for a word. Here's my question. Does Sarah like or dislike swimming? Just so you know, it's her favorite activity in the world.
She likes swimming.
Yes, but that's not what I asked.
Okay.
Let's try it again.
Okay.
We have Sarah, plus sign, swimming. We have to swap out the plus sign for a word. Does Sarah like or dislike swimming?
Give me a second here.
Swimming is her favorite activity in the world.
Right, right, right.
So does she like or dislike it?
Neither.
No, it's her favorite thing in the world.
It's her favorite thing in the world is swap out the plus sign with what she likes, right?
Yeah, but that's not what I have you completely confused now.
Just give me another shot. Give me another shot.
Okay, does
Ask me
Sarah
again.
like or dislike swimming? It's one of the two.
Sarah. Is it a question? You're asking me a question, right?
Yeah, does Sarah like or dislike swimming? It's very simple. It's one of the two.
I love this, by the way. It has my brain spinning right now. Sarah.
Yeah. What's the next word?
Okay, ask me again. I got it. I got it. Ask
Does
me again.
Sarah like or dislike swimming?
Does Sarah like or dislike swimming?
Yes, which one is it?
Sarah likes swimming.
But that's not what I asked.
Okay, give it up. Give it up.
Okay.
Give it up.
This level of confusion that you're now having, you're about to go, I can't believe I didn't see it. Okay. This is what it's like for a dyslexic every day in school, all day long.
Okay.
Because what's going on is they're supposed to learn how to do this in the back part of the brain, and we got nothing going on. That's the problem. So, are you ready for your epiphany?
No, I'm not, because I know I should have got it.
This happens to most trained educators. So when I asked, does Sarah like or dislike swimming, you did what almost every educated adult did. You went and you decided to process it in the back part of the brain. And when you came out with a sentence, you automatically added the S to make it a proper sentence. Sarah's dyslexic. She literally
Okay,
has nothing going on back here. She doesn't
she
know how to
likes
add the
swimming.
S.
She likes swimming.
No, I asked, does Sarah like or dislike? You automatically added the S to make it a
Yes.
proper sentence.
Right.
Sarah is dyslexic. She doesn't know how to add the S. She would have answered exactly what I asked, like, and it would have been Sarah like swimming. No S.
No S. So
No
Sarah
S.
likes
She has,
swimming.
it would have been Sarah like swimming. Yes. It's an improper sentence. So what you automatically did is you added the S to make it a proper sentence as you were trained. Sarah is
And I said it really like I was really confident. I said likes.
Yes. But I asked like or dislike, and you added the S, and she can't add the S. She doesn't know how because that part of her brain just doesn't work.
Right. So Sarah dislikes swimming.
Okay. Well, no, Sarah likes swimming. There's just no S.
Sarah likes swimming. Right.
No, Sarah like swimming.
Right.
No S. So that's the problem. Now, how do we solve that problem? Well, if you're a millionaire, you could go to the Windward School in the Upper East Side of Manhattan. They would take Sarah in fifth grade, work with her for 4 or 5 years, and return her as the most educated person in the planet. They are the best of what they do, best in comparison to the best private schools in the world. $75,000 a year for 4 to 5 years, and they have a 98% success rate. If you don't have an extra $500,000 sitting around, here's how we use modern science to do it. Let's again look at the modern science. The front part of the brain is 2.5 times overactive. Let's use that 2.5 times. So we have to move it to the front. According to Yale, the front part of the brain deals with word analysis followed by articulation. Here's how we use it. I ask Sarah, do you like or dislike swimming? She'll say, like. And I'll say, Sarah, read what you wrote out loud. Sarah likes swimming. Here's how we use word analysis. I'll say, Sarah, read what you wrote out loud and answer this question. Does it sound generally correct? And she'll go, Sarah likes swimming. No, it doesn't sound generally correct. And I'll say, Sarah, fix it so it does sound generally correct. And she'll go and add yes. And then we'll practice that for the other 9 likes and the 10 dislikes until it's all done properly. If it's not done properly, we start over again until it does. Do you see how that's...
So how does she arrive at adding the S?
Because it sounds, Sarah like swimming doesn't sound correct. Sarah likes swimming sounds correct.
So do they give her the option to add the S?
Yeah. Well, I say, does it sound generally correct? She says no. She adds the S to make it sound generally correct. I tell her to fix it.
So do you tell her to add? What I'm asking is, do you give her the option between like and likes, and then
I
ask her
asked
which
does she
one
like, or
sounds.
I ask if she like or dislike. She'll say like,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll ask her to read it out loud. Sarah likes swimming. Does that sound generally correct? She'll say no.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'll tell her to fix it. Sarah likes swimming, so it sounds correct.
Mm-hmm.
That's a simple form of word analysis. That's the start
Okay.
of pulling it to the front part of the brain. The second part is I'll say, give me a reason. Why do you like swimming? She'll say, Sarah likes swimming because she likes being on the swim team. I'll say, great, Sarah. Now type that out. Now read it out loud. And does that sound generally correct? She'll say no. And I'll say, keep doing that until it does sound generally correct. That's doing two things. Number one, do you see how the reasons are a simple form of articulation?
Mm-hmm.
So before the because is word analysis, after because is articulation. We now moved it from the back part of the brain to the front part of the brain. Okay. Now that's allowing her to use that 2.5 times that activity. I ask her to keep reading it out loud until it sounds generally correct, and that'll make the grammar decent. We go from randomly placed misspelled words to decent grammar that a teacher can work with. As far as the spelling, I'll say drop a period, and I'm going to have you go ahead and retype the sentence completely each time you make a spelling mistake, which is going to be between 3 and 13 times typically. She's going to keep saying, I'm not going to make that mistake. And she keeps making it until she gets it correct. Then we move on to the next one. Okay. And we keep doing that until everything's spelled correct. Once we do that, then we move on to the other 9 likes and 10 dislikes until it's the same thing. And then we do it the same thing for reason 1 and reason 2, all 20, and reason 1, reason 2, and reason 3, all 20. By the time you're done, she's writing a decent grammar, correct spelling, 3 reason sentence, and her reading has also improved because if you can write it, you can read it. It's literally that simple.
I could tell you, Russell, is really not. My brain is it's all over the place. I'm still going back to the whole Sarah dislike swimming thing. I'm still going back to that, or like swimming. I'm still
Well,
replaying that in
yeah,
my head.
you would have to replay this. Most people replay what I tell them several times.
Right,
But essentially, this is how we're taking a student from writing randomly placed misspelled words and doing a 3 reason sentence with decent grammar and correct spelling.
right, right.
And honestly, I had like August is one of our test cases. He started this literally in September, and he took him through February to get through all this. His mom is a trained teacher. She worked with him for 10 to 15 minute segments, but that process took 5 6 months for him. Now, for older kids, it's quicker. We had another kid who went through that in probably about 2 to 3 months. Okay, and yes, it takes that, but it's that simple.
You talk about how many parents feel completely exhausted because they've tried everything and see their child struggling. Why do you
Right.
think so
So
many families feel like they're stuck in that cycle?
well, if you're 4th grade and above, I can tell you what, you can either sue your school district to send them to a school like the Windward School in the Upper East Side of Manhattan, or Gowell, which, by the way, is their 100th anniversary this year. They're south of Buffalo. They've been doing this for 100 years. You can sue your school district and send them to one of these private schools, or you can go. That's my beginning process. We take students through literally submitting an article to a major publication, to a peer-reviewed journal for grad school. All right. And we can show you how to teach your kids. So those are your 2 options after 4th grade. If you're in kindergarten, smartest thing you can do is contact Yale. Just Google Yale dyslexia. They can tell you how to diagnose your kid for like 40, $50. The school pays for it. The teacher can do it themselves. It's simple. Once you find out they're dyslexic, just ask them, what programs can we use? And they will tell you what to use. If you do it properly, if the school does it, by the time your kid takes their 3rd grade reading and writing test, they will probably pass it. And then they should be fine. Even if it's a D, they should be okay. If they fail it, that's the 911 emergency, and then you have to go to that private school route or work with me, where we teach you to teach your kids. But if they've diagnosed in kindergarten, follow those programs, they should be okay. Because in our system, K through 3, we learn to read. 4th and above, we read to learn.
Do they need money to be in these
The
programs?
schools should be doing it this way. A federal judge said if they don't do it this way, it's literally gross negligence. A federal judge who's appointed by the president of the United States and confirmed by the Senate. That's what they said in cases like this. Gross negligence for not doing it. Because kindergarten through 3rd grade, if you do it properly, Yale's not the only deposit house for all this. They're just the most famous.
Okay.
Okay. And they can tell you School district, 40, $50 a kid. You have a class of 100 kids. What do we talk? A couple $1,000 here? It's not a lot. Teacher can do it. Then how do we teach them? Well, they got the programs that are federally funded. We all know they work. You have to do that from kindergarten through the end of third grade, and they'll pass the test or be close to it. Now, let parents know if the school does that and your kid still hasn't passed the test, the federal judge will not force them to send your kid to a private school that's 70 grand a year just for tuition. But if they don't do it, they will, generally. But even if you win, you still want to send your kid off to boarding school.
Right. Right.
And I've had parents that I've talked to, and they decided they didn't want to work with me. They wanted to send their kids to a school like W.A.R, who's been doing this literally for 100 years. And I said, you will be very happy with the result. And I called them up years later after the kid graduated. The kid's going to a top 50 school, and they are exceedingly well prepared. And I said, I'm happy that your son is okay, that he's going to do extremely well. But those who can't afford it or don't want to deal with it, I can show you how to solve this at home. And we literally go through PhD level stuff.
That's good stuff, Russ. That's good stuff. And what are the most common mistakes schools or programs?
Just so you know, your thing's going to turn off in a few minutes.
What? What's that?
Riverside.
It is? Why?
Because you're on the free version?
No. This is paid.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
so
we're good.
Okay.
Good.
So this just mentioned. Okay. So sorry. Go ahead. What's the question?
No, I was going to ask, what are the most common mistakes schools or programs make when trying to help a dyslexic learner?
Well, let's again look at the science. This is your typical student. Okay. This is what they design things for. The back part of the brain being very active. The dyslectic's got nothing going on. The schools are not trying to be hard on the neurodiverse. It's just 80+% of their students, it works well for them starting off at the big picture and eventually going down to the details. But for dyslectic, if we step outside their speciality, their area of extreme interest and ability, this also works for ADD and ADHD. This is less than 20% of the population. So 80+% of the populations, all the kids have to do is study properly, plan out, and spend the appropriate amount of time studying, and then work really freaking hard. And then they're going to be successful to monstrously successful. A dyslectic, on the other hand, could work 10 times harder and still flunk. So let's figure out how we use that. For ADD, ADHD, and dyslexia, we have to focus on the kid's speciality. Let me give you an example. I just want everybody to know, I never met anybody like Casey before this. I will never see anybody like Casey again. This was a one-off edge case. Casey was 10 years old when I met her in the end of 5th grade. She turned 11 over the summertime, and she was writing randomly placed misspelled words, reading and writing at about the 2nd grade level. She was very interested in Theodore Roosevelt, so I assigned her this monster. The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt that won the Pulitzer, all 900 pages of it. This is 10th grade to first year college level, depending on who you ask. She insisted on doing reading first, so I gave her a simple process. On her decision, she shut her door 3 hours a night for the next 6 months, most of the day during summertime. At the end of that, you could flip to this random page, point to that random word, and she would tell you the dictionary definition. She jumped 8 grade levels in 6 months, and I worked with her for 15 minutes a week.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing.
Yes. Okay. So but people ask, well, what happened? Well, she just went through a simple process, hour upon hour, and she just grinded it through.
Right.
Now, why am I spending so much time on this? Because then her mom said, is this just for books you like? So then I gave her something she hated. And she said her motivation dropped about 50%. That's the key point why I'm spending so much time on this. Most motivated kid in the world dropped to 50% when we moved outside her speciality, which for most of our education is everything. In grad school, we're in our speciality. That's why I dominated. That's why Casey dominated. It's the front part of the brain. So when most students, when I ask them if we're outside their speciality, how much does their motivation drop? They said 75 to 90%. That's why everything you're trying doesn't work, because you're down 75 to 90% in the motivation department. So what do we have to do during the intervention period? We have to focus on the kid's speciality. Then if you ask a dyslectic, in your speciality, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed, but with little to no organization? They're going to say yes. So what we have to do is force the dyslexic brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. Let me explain that in English. Imagine you were given this assignment. What effect did Martin Luther King's famous I Have a Dream speech have on the American civil rights movement of the 1960s? If you were given that assignment now, could you go to a library and just have a general idea of where to get started?
Go to the library and have it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Because
actually,
what
I.
affected, you go read the speech and then
Hmm.
you go and you start, you have a general idea of how to do this
Right.
because
Right.
that's the back part of the brain. But for a dyslexic, it's like grabbing fog. There's
Mm.
nothing to grab onto. We don't do big picture and then eventually get to the details. We have
Hmm.
to start at the detail and eventually go out. So we would ask the question this way. What affected what personally compelled Martin Luther King to want to give his famous speech? I actually had a
Oh,
student
okay.
go through that. And I'd say, that's the question. So then she went from crying to went to his biography, looked it up, and she said, now I know what the answer is. I said, great. Now, didn't that answer give you a question? And she said, yes. She went back and looked. Here's the next question, which was a little bit out from that. Now answer that question. What's the new question from that answer? And answer it. And what she did is she kept doing that, and she eventually went from that very narrow point, eventually out further. And that forced her brain to organize by using writing as a measurable output.
Well,
And
that
her
sounds
teach
like real investigative work, you know?
Right. But the key thing is instead of getting the same big picture to eventually some details that the teacher got, where the top students always wrote the same paper. Now, or something very similar now, he had this was a new angle. He didn't see it before. And I said, when you're dealing with the neurodiverse, you start with a very specific point and then going out because that forces our brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. And then we do word analysis followed by articulation the way that I showed you. Parents will ask, well, how does this work in reality? And I said, okay, I'm coming out with a book soon called If You Can Write, You Can Read. And it's about, my part is about Kimberly. We met in December 27th of 2024. Kimberly is a homeschooling mom with some college. She taught her four of her five kids to read brilliantly with traditional methods. I'm talking top of the charts. But her fifth child, Reed, was 10 years old in fifth grade, and he was doing horrible. And she was devastated, didn't know what to do, very concerned, very ashamed. And the book's about her story. Just before I talked to her, a couple weeks before I talked to her, she had the state of Ohio. She paid $700, and they tested all her kids. Reed was 10 years old again in fifth grade, reading at the 11th percentile, writing at the 4th percentile. So I worked with Kimberly for half an hour a week for the rest of the school year. She worked with Reed for an hour and a half a week, 3 half-hour sessions. Most parents do 10 to 15-minute sessions. At the end of the school year, he had an increase, which I'm not telling you about because over the summertime, Reed's friends came to him and said, Reed, we want you with us in public school to be with us socially. So in the beginning of August, let's call it 8.5 months after we met, he was tested in a public school, much better data. And he had a big increase. If he scored anything remotely like he did in December, he would have been placed in special ed away from his friends, unhappy kid. Well, his reading went from the 11th percentile to the 64th. His writing went from the 4th percentile to the 65th. His grammar jumped to the 9th percentile. I asked Kimberly last month how Reed's doing. She said he's in normal classes, getting mainly A's and B's. She did what every parent dreamed of, part-time in less than 9 months compared to the 4 to 5 years full-time at a top private dyslexic school. That's how powerful this is.
Russell, I'm gonna sidestep a little bit. I know a kid. He's not a kid, he's an adult, but he's dyslexic. He won't text or anything. I wasn't understanding dyslexia at first, and he didn't come out and tell me why he wouldn't text me back and everything. And then I found out from his mother why when he wouldn't text me back, and he'll become real emotional when I would text him. And I found out from him that a lot of kids shut down emotionally when reading comes into play and becomes frustrating. So my question to you are, what are some early signs parents should watch for that a child is losing confidence in their ability to learn?
Well, for boys, it's really simple. They just act out. Okay. I mean, they just
Hmm.
start crying. They start throwing temper tantrums. Girls are different. They generally will just take it. Okay. So, what you need to do is if the kid is falling behind, you need to understand that and get them tested for dyslexia. Now, in New
Hmm.
York State, what you do is go to a pediatrician, have him say, with notes from the teacher saying, I think this kid's dyslexic, and a private insurer will actually pay up to $5,000 for a neuropsych to do that.
Hmm.
Okay. Or you can just tell your school under federal, notice I said federal, not state law, they have to do this. All right. So find out if they're dyslexic. If they're dyslexic, ideally what you want to do is catch it in kindergarten. Then what you
Okay.
do is you contact Yale. And as I said, they can test it in, for, I don't know, 40, $50, whatever it is a kid. The teacher can do it. And then from there, they can just, they have programs at Yale that will just tell you how to fix the whole thing. Do that. If it's fourth and later and they didn't do the Yale thing, you can sue them in federal court and they'll eventually force the school to pay to send them to a private school like Gowell. And then you're sending your kid off to boarding school, or I can work with you to show them how to fix it at home. Or you just live with a problem. And the older the kid is, the quicker they will pick it up. So that's essentially that's simply what the answer is. Hopefully, you catch it in kindergarten and work with Yale. Otherwise, those are the other two options.
Okay, so what if you're an adult living with it and
Well, the first program I created was for a very specific type of adult, highly motivated, highly intelligent. I've taught that to Ivy League graduates, and it's been tremendously helpful. Otherwise, we go through the same process I teach the kids, but you go through it at a radically faster pace. Adults go through this much faster than children do. It's the exact opposite with traditional methods. So the guy you're talking about, what does he do for a living?
he's very, very talented in fishing. He can fish and catch fish, and that's what he does for a living. Basically, he catches fish, and I think he works for a restaurant now.
Okay. So basically, if you ever wanted to maybe go back to a community college and do a head and hands type job, that's our first three programs to bring the reading and writing level up to. It's essentially the context and the craft of research. Yeah, we show parents and other adults how to work with them. And an adult, you're probably talking about 12 to 24 months to do it. All right. And we have online classes on the school platform, skol.com, that take care of that.
Okay, okay. Can you share a story with us about a student you work with who was struggling heavily with dyslexia and what changed once that right learning strategy was introduced?
Sure. I'll give you a second student. His name was Adam. And I'm going back to my original program with this one. Adam was a genius. He failed the New York State Regents with a 47 and a 52, and he came from a financially challenged family. And he was not a college type guy. He was a genius. He was going to be a head and hands type kid who we took him through the program, and 5 months later he was writing at the 70th percentile of undergrad students. He went on to a community college, English 101 and 102, no accommodations. He got B's. He finished up with a union. The schools have these big boilers. He joined that union. They called him in to try to fix a problem that they were under contract for. Took him a day and a half, and he said, I'm sorry this took so long, but this was a tough problem. Here's how you fix it. And they said, we've been trying to do this for a month. We are problem solvers in our speciality. And, I've done that with hundreds of families.
That's great. Stories like that matter because it gives families hope. Progress is possible.
Yes.
You mentioned structured literacy as one of the most effective methods of dyslexic learners. For parents listening who may not know what that means, what is structured literacy, and why does it work better than traditional teaching methods?
Well, that's the three-step model I told you. It's where we start off with the kid's speciality during the intervention period only. For Reed, it was Logan from X-Men, Wolverine. We then go through the specific to the general, then word analysis followed by articulation. Because now we're focusing on that front part of the brain where we have 2.5 times the neuroactivity and transfer things up there.
Okay.
Traditional methods just try to work with the back part of the brain. As I showed you, there's just nothing going on back there. Here's an analogy I like to give. The sport that I suck at is basketball. What is it that you're really, really, really bad at? What sport?
Me?
Yeah,
What
for you. What
sport I'm
sport?
really bad at? Oh, I'm great
Yeah,
at
what's
all of them. I'm great at all of them. No, I'm just kidding. I would say really, really bad at soccer.
okay. So let's say we're going to take somebody of your age group who used to play Division 1 soccer in college. We're going to give you the best soccer coach on the planet for the next 6 months, which you will work full time because Bill Gates is paying you 10 million for this experiment. All right. And then we're going to get you the best soccer equipment on the planet. And we're going to give the guy you're going up against, that former college player in soccer at the D1 level, we're going to give him used Walmart equipment that should be in the dumpster.
Uh,
Is it going to make any difference at all?
Heck no. It's not gonna make
Okay.
one bit of a difference.
Yeah, you're still going to get creamed even if his shoes are falling apart.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Your body was not designed for soccer.
Hmm.
Dyslexics, ADD, and ADHD kids were not designed for kindergarten through college. We were designed for grad school in our speciality, where I showed you how I absolutely dominated it. And that's a typical, my story is very typical with dyslexics. Okay. So what we have to do is just get them through high school and college. If they're going to a traditional college, they're going to a graduate program, most likely a master's. And once they're in grad school, it is so profoundly unfair. Profoundly unfair. I remember when we're giving quizzes in property, and you're supposed to think for 3 to 5 minutes because they're so good at fooling you. And I wouldn't even think for 3 to 5 seconds. I would just answer it, turn it in. I almost always had perfect hundreds. And I'm twiddling my thumbs. Okay. I'm just going, do. And the rest of my classmates were like, why is this so easy for you? I said, yeah, just wait until we get through legal research and writing. Because I said, this is so easy, it's a joke. We get to legal research and writing, and I get killed because I just simply can't keep up.
Mm.
I said, that's your advantage. This is mine. I can dominate in class. I can't dominate in practice because I can't keep up with the reading and writing. And they're like, so you have to focus on what your strengths are.
Right, right. It seems like it. And if a parent is watching this right now and feeling overwhelmed because their child is struggling with dyslexia, what message would you want them to hear today?
Okay. What I would suggest that you first of all just breathe. Okay. Just breathe. What I would focus on is number one, where are you? It's very simple. For your kids in kindergarten or just beginning first grade, contact Yale, say, how do I get my kid tested in school? How do we fix this if it comes back? And they will tell you. And then you have to force your kid to do it, maybe through federal litigation. All right. If that fixes thing, the kid's going to take a reading and writing test at the end of third grade in every state in the United States. And if they pass, they should be okay. If they fail it, if they're far behind, or you wait until fourth grade or above, you really are. I would just, so you know what one option is, go to GOW.org. GOW.org and look at the Gallo School. They've been doing this for 100 years. If you get the scholarship, I think they get the cost down to about tuition to about 60,000 a year. They want them for fifth grade through high school. If you do that, you will be more than pleased with the result. You will be astonished at what they can do with your child. They're brilliant at it. If you don't want to do that, then the best thing to do is just go to dyslexiaclasses.com. It's with an S, dyslexiaclasses.com. There's a button that says download free guide. Fill out 3 questions, set up a time to speak with me. I can talk to you and your child. There's no cost. Ask them a series of questions. They're like, yeah, that's how my brain works, and ask them this is how they want to learn. And we can show you how to do that. We have a learning platform called School. When you have a professional instructor, on a weekly basis, most of my competition is 500 to 1,000 a month. And outside parents driving new BMWs, most can't afford that. So we lowered it to 147 a month. Angela is our instructor. She is a certified elementary school teacher with a 2-year master's degree in the state of Texas with a decade of experience. She is now a homeschooling mom, and she has taught her son, August. She's walked him through this process, and she's there each week for about an hour to answer your questions. And those are what the options are. Or you just kind of live with what it is.
Right, right. Russell, I appreciate the work you're doing, helping kids rediscover their confidence and helping families understand that their child isn't broken. That's powerful work, man. I love it. For anyone listening who wants to learn more, Russell has also provided a guide explaining the 3 reasons dyslexia education often fails and what parents can do about it. We'll make sure the link is available for anyone who wants to check that out. And to everyone watching, if you're fighting battles people can't see, keep going. because healing, growth, and rebuilding are always possible. Russell, thanks again for being with us today. Thank you, sir, for everything you're doing.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Stay tuned, everybody. It's war. Each one reach one. We're all recovering.